Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny Tunes. It's Destiny here. Today I want to talk about the animated short film titled Last Night. So whenever you stumble upon a short film that is titled Last Night, it can be a little hard to perceive what the title is intending exactly. Does it mean last night as in the night before this one? Or does it mean last night as in after tonight, there's no more? Going into this video, I thought that maybe it would be option 1, that this short film was going to be about the aftermath of a really fun night or maybe picking up the pieces after a really bad fight. But no, this short film was a combination of the two. Last Night was about the last night you share with someone when thinking it'll be your last time seeing them ever. Well, that with a ton of feels and amazing chill tones sandwiched in between. But with that being said, let's start digging a little deeper into this short film. So the relationship between Paris and Vince appears to be a complicated one. There seems to be a strong connection tying these two together, but also a kind of sadness looming over them that's hard to ignore. In the beginning, it's kind of easy to see these characters as two friends just hanging out around town, but after the flirtatious banter, I figured that they were potentially something more than that, which does make the ending of this short film feel a little more bitter. But before discussing the conclusion of this short film too much, I do want to talk more about these characters as individuals, starting with Vince. So considering the fact that the short film is only 4 minutes long, there isn't really a whole lot of dissecting I can do on these characters, so I'm going to be throwing in some of my own personal opinions on how I feel about these characters and things like that. So, Vince is more of the outgoing character out of the two. He isn't afraid to make a fool out of himself if it means making Paris laugh. He seems like the kind of guy who tries to be friends with everyone, but although he comes off as happy and bright, it does feel as if there is a lot he's burdened with internally. Throughout this short film, we see just how much control Vince's mom has over his life when we see his attitude alter each time she calls his phone, which is a lot. And we actually find out the reason behind her constant calling is because she doesn't approve of Vince and Paris hanging out so much. So if I had to take a guess, I would assume that maybe Vince's mom isn't a fan of her son being in a relationship with another guy. If Vince's mom being homophobic is the case, that definitely adds another layer to this character's very obvious sadness and would explain why he's so eager to leave the house and even the town where Paris lives if it means getting away from his mom. The way that Vince speaks about this new adventure feels hopeful with a tinge of guilt about leaving Paris behind, and honestly, I understand both sides. I get that most people would want to stay behind for their significant other, but I feel like it also takes a lot of strength to choose yourself over choosing those that you care most about. Vince says that nothing between the two will ever change, and I feel like there is a lot of good intentions behind those words, but ultimately it seems as if Paris has the more realistic view behind this statement. Long-distance relationships can be extremely difficult, especially when there are already some parts of your relationship that are fuzzy, or both partners aren't doing good mentally or physically in their own life. Vince's desire for something more mixed with Paris's fear of being left behind does worry me a bit because this feels like a recipe for heartbreak. Well, even more heartbreak. Now, when it comes to Paris, nothing about his sadness is hidden behind the guise of being jolly. As soon as the first line is delivered from this character, I knew that there was something troubling him, something that was weighing heavy on his heart. I'm not exactly sure how old these characters are, but considering the fact that they look relatively young and Vince is going off to college, I'm gonna assume that they're around the age of 18 maybe, and if that's the case, I feel extremely bad for the life that Paris is already stuck in. This is a character who is already having to pick up extra shifts to help support his ill mother, and we see the strain of this work with the tons of scratches all over his hands. The fact that he hasn't even reached 20 yet and this character is already handling so much responsibility is heartbreaking, especially with the addition of losing the person who seemed to make all of this struggle a little more bearable. I don't know about anyone else watching this video, but I relate heavily to Paris's feelings of being left behind while everyone else gets to go out and experience life in a way that you feel you'll never be able to. Feeling limited in opportunity and experience is a type of lonely that people just wouldn't understand unless they were also in that situation. And it can seem a little selfish that Paris would rather have Vince stay behind with him, even if it meant that Vince was also trapped. But for Paris, it seems as if he was just trying to hold on to any sort of happiness where he could get it. And the idea of not wanting to see Vince that night before he leaves was just Paris's way of protecting what was to come when that sun rose the next morning. Again, I really do worry for this character, especially seeing all of the pill bottles on his nightstand. I'm not exactly sure if these were prescribed for pain or something like that. I did see that one of them was a sleep aid, but my mind can't help but wander to the dark places, thinking that this character might end up using these pills to cope with those dark days without Vince. Because in the end, Vince does end up leaving that next morning to start his new life, and Paris is left with nothing but a note written by Vince saying, "New chapter or not, you will always be part of my story." And honestly, I don't think that this would be enough to bring me any sort of comfort or closure on this sort of situation. It was kind of hard to read his facial expression, but it did seem as if Paris had a little smile, so maybe in his case these words were enough, and I'm really hoping that they are, because again, this character does leave me feeling worrisome about his future without Vince in his life. I really wish that there was more for these characters, like a happily ever after or something like that. But I do also appreciate the harsh reality of this short film and the message that people will come in and out of your life no matter how badly you want them to stay. Before ending this video, I do want to talk about this short film outside of the story aspect and give some praise to visual and atmosphere. I've always been a really big fan of animation that implement a lot of cool colors, and I feel like in this scenario, having the atmosphere be very dark and relaxed really does play into the gloominess of the situation at hand. But also, it did a really good job at painting just how comfortable these two characters are with each other. I also really like the fact that there wasn't a lot of music used in this short film and instead relied on the sounds of natural ambiance, which definitely captured the feeling of summer, which hit me with nostalgia and was the cherry on top of this short film. With all that being said, even though the short film was only 4 minutes long, it was still a really good watch, and if you haven't already checked it out, it will be linked in my description box below. There were definitely things to connect yourself to these characters, and even their situations for me as an individual. So who knows, you might be able to see yourself in one of these characters as well. But this is where I'm going to end the video, so if you made it this far, thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, let me know that you did by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications so you never miss a video in the future. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!